There's problems by becoming rich. Take all your money, buy Bitcoin. I say when we sell.
Wake up every morning and say GM.
GM. Monday, 29th of July. GM. Taking a look at the new, almost ready to go indicator. Just one issue with the New York Opens, but I'll get that released today. Here is our weekly open though. You can see there, 29th to 7th. Weekly open. So, as of this morning, we pumped pretty much right off the open. And looking at price, it's obviously in a healthy place. It keeps moving higher, although each time it pushes, we do not see impulsive breakouts, and we are seeing more of rounded out topping price action, which is not a sign, I would say, not a sign of moving imminently towards a major breakout that holds. That can be invalidated though with a move. So the way it's going currently is like this. Price action sort of going like that, and that typically will lead to some kind of a top over here. However, when you see that kind of rounding, if price then invalidates it and breaks out and moves into an impulsive type of setup, then that's fine. So that's what you're looking at over here. We don't have that yet. We don't really have any clear, not really any clear indications yet of where price is going to be going. But what I mentioned on weekly outlook yesterday holds true. The market is bullish, the setup is bullish, the chart is bullish, the narrative is bullish, the flows should be bullish. The next few months seem to have more of a bullish lean towards them. And I think that is what Bitcoin is doing this week. It's starting to price a lot of this in. People are looking forward to higher prices on BTC. And we've seen it now that right off the weekly open, price is pumped. So I wouldn't be chasing in here. As you know, oftentimes Monday produces a move in one direction that gets retraced. Right, so we opened up here, pumped higher. If you look on a weekly, you can see this. We've got a weekly candle developing where, at the very start of Monday's session, you have a move up. And that means you've got the entire week now, 6.5 more days to go with no lower wick on the weekly candle yet. And that always makes me urge a little bit of caution, because you'd expect price to probably come back down a little bit and try to test on the other side. Now, overall, we're in a good spot. BTC looking good. That weekly close, I would say, probably sets up some consolidation. I would expect us to have a wick down into this area, somewhere between the upper band and where this weekly open is. I would expect us to fill in some of last week's candle. If you look at it here, standard impulse move up, shallow pullback, impulse move up, a deeper pullback, impulse move. Really only one of those candles was impulsive. Most of this was kind of a grinding, maybe corrective type of action. So I would expect price to come back. The invalidation for that is a clean break and hold above 70. If we clean break and hold above 70, that takes pretty much all of that out and puts us into the area where we can look at this green path for price to consolidate and actually push on then to new all-time highs and beyond. And if I get the object tree and put on some of these, I don't know where it is. No, there we are. Is that it? Right, this is it over here. So if we zoom in, definitely don't need this or this. We can get rid of some of that. Let's zoom this in. We had this nice pullback into the range yesterday, so which I mentioned on Saturday. If we take the range highs and pull back inside, watch for it to come back to the other side of value, or point of control actually got front ran and held. So quite a strong move from BTC to hold that. A sign of a bullish market, a sign of continuation, at least for now. Again, like, this type of price action is not generally what I want to see for continuation unless we get a further extension. But overall, price just keeps grinding higher. And if we zoom it out here, this is now the level, the last level to flip. So we reclaimed the value area from May, June. You can see there. We reclaimed the value area of May, June, moved up to the old value area of March to July, and then the May, June one over here, we're just touching towards the top end of that. So for me, the last point for anything really bearish before all-time high is probably around 70. And if we continue to trade through that, I think that's when BTC is going to go for a breakout. Especially if it's able to consolidate for a little bit under all-time high, just to build a bit of a base. You know, if it's able to actually follow, you know, like, let's say this green path where it actually consolidates near the highs, that would give much more potential to the next breakout. If you could say a week maybe just of consolidation near those highs with lower volatility, not the higher volatility chop, that would increase my confidence in a breakout. So ETH, starting off the week by moving back up to fill in some of the gap of the move, the post ETF breakdown. Again, hesitant to read too much into it. You're starting off the week, you know, there hasn't been any down move, it's just straight up. While sometimes we do have a flat weekly candle, and sometimes that does not go back and get revisited, most of the time it will be. So I would be exercising patience here. Same as Solana. So the problem now with something like Solana is that if it goes back to the weekly close, or sorry, the weekly open, if it goes to the weekly open here for a retest, it's also going to mean that you're at risk of a false breakout at that point, right? If it just comes back to retest that level and put some lower end on wick, then you're looking at maybe a false breakout, which might lead to a deeper correction. And I think that the start of the week just got a lot of flows, as I think most people are betting on an overall bullish week. So it can be a good thing that we've seen this early push, this early front running. But as a trader, you have to be mindful of risk. Like, where are you going to get in? Like, say you're going to buy Solana. If you're going to buy Solana there, the only place you can really put your stop loss is below that most recent low. And then that doesn't give you a very favorable risk reward, even to all-time high. It's just above 2R, but you know, all-time high is a long way away even now. What I would be much more inclined to do would be wait for some kind of consolidation to develop, and maybe see, at least what I would like to see with something like Sol, I would like to see it attempt to go lower again and come back above. Right? And once you have the dotted red line, if it loses it back above it, that would be where I'd see a move to the highs, and you can have a tighter invalidation, and you can probably have some more confirmation. Now, back over, I want to look at 4-hour trends. Bitcoin moved up, dipped back, defended the 4-hour trend very nicely, and made a new high. What you want to see now is some consolidation at those levels or above. I would like to see Bitcoin maybe consolidate at and above the 50 before the next push. So from a 4-hour perspective, trend looking good. Ethereum does not have a bullish 4-hour trend yet because of moving up into the ETF. It almost did, dropped off, sold off. Solana does, a very strong 4-hour trend in progress. And from that perspective, it all looks good. The main thing I'm watching for is, if you look at these charts, there's loads of room for a higher low to form later on the other side. Right, over here, it's like there's big gaping areas for higher lows. When the market moves like this, and you feel like it's never going to pull back, right, you think it's going to do that. But actually, that is entirely possible. As you've had to move all the way up, you can easily come back down and see a higher low form anywhere. Maybe it forms there or here or at the lows, and then price goes again. You look at the concept of retest, we touch, and is it going to move away with no pullback? I mean, we've had a single one directional move since the 5th of July, and it's now 29th. So we've had like over 3 weeks of just really up, and it gets to that point where people think that there's never going to be a pullback, and then we generally get some kind of pullback. You had it here with an impulse higher, and then we slowly filled back into a higher low over there. We might just see something similar. Now, there isn't a shift yet, I don't think. I don't think there's anything there to cause prices to retrace all the way back, which is why you can see it holding up higher and for longer than you would typically expect. If I get the old Bitcoin chart that I mentioned, because we're coming into the Fed meeting, this is something that I want to check back in on. If you remember, I drew out this path a while ago. And here we go. We had July 31 FOMC as one of the potential areas for a local top. This was drawn back in June, and it was based on if we go lower, which we did, we took out the lows, and then we rally, which we did, and we're around this area at the FOMC, which we are, you could actually see a local top. And then the bottom could come around the September FOMC, which is when they're actually going to cut rates. This is not a prediction. This path, it hasn't played out fully, of course, clearly you can see that, but it did go down and it did go up. I don't think it has to, just because this path, I don't think it has to go all the way down to there. The market has changed, right, since then, especially the Bitcoin strategic reserve, US stuff, would definitely be something that would hold prices up higher. But do I think that the FOMC meeting can produce a local turning point? Yes. So less so about this path, more so about the timing. The FOMC meeting can absolutely produce a local top, and then the following one can produce a local bottom. They so often do, like not every single time, but very common at the major meetings, act as either a bottom or a top for the market in a local sense or in a rotation. That might just mean a shallow pullback. It might not even top out at all, of course. And I think it depends on what the Fed does, because there's a decent probability that this meeting doesn't really come to anything, because the Fed maybe they just won't cut rates this time, and they just talk about, yeah, we're probably going to cut rates in September. And if the meeting goes down as a bit of a non-event, you might see that reflected in price. So to be clear, I don't think this path needs to make new lows anymore. I do, and really, I should really hide this and move it off. I do think, as I've thought all along, that those two meetings are important. Again, wherever they come from, does not have to be all the way down there. The two meetings are interesting because you're getting now this July meeting coming when we're near the highs. Maybe we end up back near the lows at September 1. Right? Maybe it does just hold as a range. You see some kind of topping out and then some kind of bottoming out, and then boom, away it goes once the market gets the green light. Now, to go all the way back down there into September when everyone's expecting rate cuts, there'll have to be some kind of external catalyst, maybe some fear in the market. So anyway, that's just something I'm wanted to check back in on and watching. But if you saw yesterday's weekly outlook, if you haven't, check it out. If you saw it, you'll know that most of the things we've seen over the past number of weeks have been stacking up on the bullish side. So we're starting the week in that vein. I think pullbacks can happen. I'll talk about trade of the day, how to approach these Monday pumps. And that's it. GM.